You are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With family or partner or lover or alone. We joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as a believer or a doubter, as a joiner or a loner. You are welcome here, feeling part or not, full of energy or plain tired, seeking a vision or rest. You are welcome to join as you are. These words of welcome come to us today from the Reverend Ray Drennan of the Canadian Unitarian Council. And they are words for the global chalice lighting for the International Council of Unitarians and Universalists. Every month, this community sends out words so that Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists from Boston to Burundi and from the Khasi Hills of India to Kansas City, Missouri, might join in worship with similar words that we as a worldwide community might feel our connection. And so those words begin our service today along with the traditional chalice lighting words of this congregation. Symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of warmth, symbol of freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. And here we gather on the cusp of this new year, you brave souls who've come back to church after Christmas and before New Year's. We are going to kick off the cusp of this new year with a couple of shifts in this worship service. So if you're used to doing things in a familiar way, there will be a few hitches in this. And if you're here for the first time, don't expect anything. Just show up. Our opening hymn, we're going to be doing a little bit differently this morning. We're going to be doing it seated as a song into meditation. And it comes to us from one of the hymnal supplements that have been released within the last 10 years. You've probably not seen this in your pew because we don't have it, but we do have photocopies that should be near you. And if there's not one right next to you, look around, ask somebody if they can share. This song, called Filled with Loving Kindness, has grown out of a Buddhist meditation called metta meditation, which begins with wishing compassion for oneself and then with ever-widening circles. We're only going to sing 3 of those circles, because if we did it ever-widening, we'd be here until New Year's, and I doubt you probably would stay that long. So we're going to begin by singing the words, "May I be filled with loving kindness, may I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness, may I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease, may I be whole." And then the next verse, instead of saying "may I," you're going to sing "may you." And as you do this, I want you to be thinking about someone that you're wishing loving kindness to. It could be someone that you know is struggling, or it could be someone that you yourself are struggling with. Maybe they're family members who have outstayed their welcome over the holidays. But somebody that you need to do some peace work with, right? So singing that second verse, "May you be well, may you be filled with loving kindness," and then the third time around, singing it as a wish for the global community, "May we be filled with loving kindness." So we'll be singing this through all 3 times, seated, and then we'll allow that to bring us into at least a minute of silent meditation, at which point David will bring us out with some more beautiful music. So David, will you play through the song for us first, and then we'll join in singing seated. Welcome to the turning of the year, a time for holidays, a time for making proclamations and resolutions, for taking stock, for committing to new directions. Perhaps some of you are here at church because of that. Our first hymn represents that in the sense that it, as I mentioned, came from a hymnal supplement many of you may have not seen, Singing the Journey, published 10 years ago. It was an effort to diversify the offerings of what has become to be known as the gray hymnal, the one you see in front of you in our churches, Singing the Living Tradition. And of course, that hymnal replaced other hymnals before it. Hymns in New Form, which was commissioned in 1978 to address sexist and patriarchal language. The red hymnal, Hymns for Celebration of Life, in 1964, the first officially Unitarian Universalist hymnal, which was also nicknamed by some Hymns for the Cerebration of Strife. A bit of a knock on the stereotypical cerebral nature and cognitive orientation of Unitarianism, and then its later offspring, Unitarian Universalism. And then that hymnal replaced Hymns of the Spirit, published in 1937, the jointly commissioned hymnal of the then separate American Unitarian Association and Universalist Church of America. Each one of these hymnals attempts to be the next best thing, right? To improve upon what had gone before, to include and transcend, to speak to a contemporary time and place and people. So our readings, then, are also drawn from sources that will help us to try to do those things for our time. Two different, both contemporary sources that reflect on the conceptions of the work that lies in front of us and within us, both at a new year and at every new day. Our first reading is called This Making of a Whole Self. This Making of a Whole Self was written by the Reverend Nancy Schaefer, a Unitarian Universalist minister who died in 2012. It is in another hymnal supplement. Can you believe there's another one that came out this last year? So if you're looking for more readings, go online. I'm not trying to plug the UUA bookstore. I'm just saying it's there. This Making of a Whole Self. This making of a whole self takes such a very long time. Pieces are not sequential, nor are supplies. We work here, then there, hold up tattered fabric to the light, sew past dark intent, use up all of our thread. Sleeves may come before length and buttons before a rounded neck. We sew at what most needs us. And as it asks, we sew again. The self is not one thing, once made unaltered. Not midnight task alone, not after other work. It's everything we come upon, make ours. All this fitting of what once was and has become. Our second reading comes to us from a place where a lot of my contemporary inspiration comes from, pop culture, pop music. This one is lyrics to a song by the Dust Brothers called This Is Your Life. And the lyrics are drawn from the movie The Fight Club, which was based upon a book by Chuck Palahniuk, never got his name right, that starred Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. So if you ever listen to this song, if you look it up on iTunes or YouTube, you'll hear Brad Pitt's voice saying these words, if that helps you at all to imagine this. I'm not going to try and be Brad Pitt for you, sorry. And I'm not going to try and rap it the way or have electronic music in the background. Although, can you improv electronic music, David? Is there a switch on that thing? No? So, this then is the second reading. This is your life. And you open the door and you step inside. We're inside our hearts. Now imagine your pain is a white ball of healing light. That's right, your pain, a white ball of healing light. I don't think so. This is your life, good to the last drop. It doesn't get any better than this. This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. This isn't a seminar. This isn't a weekend retreat. Where you are now, you can't even imagine what the bottom will look like. Only after disaster can we be resurrected. Only after you've lost everything are you free to do anything. Nothing is static. Everything is evolving. Everything is falling apart. This is your life. It doesn't get any better than this. This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. You are not a beautiful and unique snowflake. You are the same decaying organic matter as everything else. We are all part of the same compost heap. We are the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world. You are not your bank account. You are not the clothes you wear. You are not the contents of your wallet. You are not your bowel cancer. You are not your grande latte. You are not the car you drive. You are not your khakis. You have to give up. You have to give up. You have to realize that someday you will die. Until you know that, you are useless. I say, let me never be complete. I say, let me never be content. I say, deliver me from Swedish furniture. I say, deliver me from clever arts and clear skin and perfect teeth. I say, you have to give up. I say, evolve and let the chips fall where they may. This is your life. It doesn't get any better than this. This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. That concludes this morning's readings. We're now going to have a sung response that I will invite you to rise for. It is in the gray hymnal, number 51, Lady of the Seasons' Laughter. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able. Number 51. Please be seated. Well, good morning and welcome. To those of you that I've not yet met, I'm Reverend Matthew Cockrum, a consulting minister with this congregation. And along with Tom Goldsmith, who's taking a Sunday off, and the staff and leadership and the congregation, it is my honor to serve the mission and ministries of this great, good place. Whether you are here for the first time or the 100,000th time, I'm glad you're here with us today. I hope that you're able to stay after and join us for coffee and conversation in Elliott Hall. If you're new to us and you'd like to make your presence known, you can fill out one of the gray pew cards in front of you, or you can chat with me after service or stop by the welcome table. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. I think there's an Instagram account. But please make yourself known to this community in a way that feels right to you and a way that allows you to engage it in the work that you are being called to do in the world. I'll draw your attention as well to the announcements in your bulletin. There's an insert in there that talks a little bit about what's going on in the coming days and weeks of the church. A special attention drawn that there's been an extension to the Courageous Love Award. The social justice ministries of this congregation every year collects money which it then distributes to an organization or groups that demonstrate the values and mission and ministries of this congregation. This year, the monies collected will go to 2 Native American students at the University of Utah who are actively engaged in social justice work and who are short on funds and need money to allow them to continue and complete their studies so that they can go out in the world and professionally be do-gooders. So if you have some extra money to give and some extra time, stop by the social justice table alongside the welcome table and the environmental ministries table in the social hall. At this point now, I'll invite the ushers to come forward and to receive this morning's offering, and invite you to take a minute to offer yourself as a friend and a kind face to those nearest to you. Please welcome your neighbors. Every year, at this time of year, after the Christmas carols have begun to fade, just when I was getting used to them being in the background everywhere I went, I find myself yearning for a different tune. It's a tune from my youth. It was featured in the movie Toys, which starred the late, great Robin Williams. And I don't really remember much about the movie itself, but I remember this song, and I remember who sang the version of it that I first learned. It was an 80s duo, Wendy and Lisa, who originally sang with Prince. Anybody remember Prince, or the artist formerly known as Prince? And had a featured solo by Seal, who's also still around nowadays. Their voices, though, weren't even the essential part, though they were ethereal and soaring and beautiful. Even though I've downloaded other versions by other artists, I keep coming back to a grainy old YouTube version of this one because it just feels right. It's not so much their voices, it's the lyrics that capture me every turning of the year. And it's what they say to me every year. The text by Trevor Horn and Hans Zimmer goes, "If I cannot bring you comfort, then at least I bring you hope. For nothing is more precious than the time we have. And so we all must learn from small misfortune and count the blessings that are real. Let the bells ring out for Christmas at the closing of the year." Now all the winter bells are ringing. Hear them echo through the snow and the children's voices singing on the street so far below. This is a time to be together. And the truth is somewhere here with our love of people at the closing of the year. We'll walk in a sun with all of the pain and all of the patience, all of the way, and all of us right, and all of us same. Love one another. We'll fly in the arms of time and walk in the waves, never fall at the closing of the year. This song, the text of today's readings, all speak to me of an essential religious and spiritual task: making peace with ourselves and with what is. Not with who we wish we were, not with who we could have been, not even with who we might be someday, but with who we are right now, and with where we are right now, with the world around us, seeing it for what it is, and seeing ourselves and our place in it. That line in that song about all of us right and all of us same speaks to me not of some sort of fantasied American melting pot where all differences are blended away or dismissed, but rather a more mystical kind of unity where we see ourselves connected to each other and everything. A kind of mystical unity referenced in the poetry of 13th century Sufi and mystic and scholar Jalal al-Din Muhammad Rumi, who once wrote, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense." I'm going to read that to you again. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. I imagine in that kind of place, in that kind of unity, I could lay in the grass with Donald Trump. I could lay in the grass with Kentucky County Clerk Kim Davis. I could lay in the grass with Bashar al-Assad. I could lay in the grass with Robert Lewis, who shot up Planned Parenthood. We could lay together and see ourselves as part of one whole. And the phrase each other would make no sense, because we knew that what we did affected us as much as anything or anyone else that we might think was separate from ourselves. The earth, our neighbors, our enemies, our families. The song goes on, we all must learn from small misfortune, and here I would add not so small, and find the blessings that are real. This is a time to be together, and the truth is somewhere here within our love of people at the closing of the year. Whatever place you find yourself, wherever at the end of this year that phrase of peace on earth, goodwill toward all? That's the answer for you now, this year. That's the closest you're coming to that field beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing. That is, as the Dust Brothers said, your life ending 1 minute at a time. We are not yet fully in that place, that field. At least I'm not. Maybe you are. I don't know. I'm still consumed all the time with staying on top of things, with reading the right books and the right blogs and following the right issues and the right politicians and posting the right things, showing up at the right events and protests and supporting the right causes and candidates. But it seems impossible. The world seems like it just can't ever possibly be a perfect place. Or maybe it already is. In some ways, the traditions that we are a part of say that the world is just as it should be because we have made it so. As I was reminded by a brief exchange with one of our junior high school students in the Coming of Age program, we were talking about elevator speeches for what does Unitarian Universalism mean. And we talked about the history of Universalism and the notion of salvation. And I was talking about what did Unitarians and Universalists think about salvation. This young man came up to me afterwards and said, "Really? Like no hell at all?" I said, "Well, some of them. Some now, still today. And some of them, and some of us, still now today, say it's right here, folks. Heaven and hell, we're making them as we end our lives this last day, drop by drop. Not in some other realm or reality, but now and here. If we do not see the world at its best, then perhaps it is because we are not at our best. Or perhaps we're at our next best, next to the being the best. Perhaps we're both at our best and at our worst, and getting better and worse all at once. Perhaps that's what this lifetime is about, and any other one there might be. Perhaps it's about doing the next best thing that we can in each moment, in each instance that calls to us, this making of a whole self that comes not sequentially, but piece by piece, sewing through the night till we run out of thread, and awaking the next day to find still a button missing, a sleeve too long, a seam uneven. Perhaps it is about developing more intelligence in our world and in ourselves, not just intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually. Perhaps the work in front of us, the work that will help us come into that field, is about developing the kind of compassion that was referenced in our first hymn, that meta-meditation. Loving kindness, or metta, as it is called in the Pali language, an unconditional, inclusive love, a love with wisdom. It has no conditions. It does not depend on whether one deserves it or not. It is not restricted to friends or family. It extends out from personal categories to include all living beings, with no expectations of anything in return. This is the ideal pure love which everyone has in potential. That means if you're looking at the back of someone's head right now, that love is there. Anybody in this room, everyone you pass on the street has the potential for that, both as a recipient and as a giver. That love can be cultivated in our world. It can be cultivated. Remember those chalice-lighting words, the infinite possibilities of love. Perhaps this then is our lifelong work. The work of making a whole self, knowing there will always be parts to be added, knowing it will never be best, but the next best thing, knowing that someday we will die, and it could be today. And we will make each day the work of becoming more conscious and conscientious and compassionate, so that when we find ourselves identifying with our khakis, or our bowel cancer, or our privilege, or our oppression, we can shake ourselves a bit and take life a little bit less seriously and a little bit more seriously for a moment. And then perhaps we can begin again to do the next best thing. May it be so, friends. Happy New Year. Please join me now by rising in body or spirit and join in singing the closing hymn, number 350. Shall be our New Year vow. Our closing words today are drawn from the Christian Revised Common Lectionary, from one of the texts for this Sunday, Colossians 3. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another and forgive each other. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace that passes understanding rule in your hearts, and be thankful. Let the good news dwell in you richly. Teach and admonish each other in all wisdom. And whatever you do, in word or in deed, do everything. And I would add, even this next best thing, do everything in love. Go in peace and make peace, my friends. Amen.